as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology at Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. In today's session, we are going to discuss regarding about the introduction and the servlet life cycle. Coming to the learning outcomes. At the end of today's session, the students will be able to understand the fundamentals of Java servlet. Along with that, students will be able to develop the web application using the servlets. Introduction to Java servlets. Java servlet is a Java program that runs on a Java enabled web server or an application server. It handles the client request, process them and generate the response dynamically. One of the major advantages of Java servlet is it is going to generate the response dynamically. Servlets are the backbone of many server-side Java applications due to their efficiency and the scalability. So basically the key features of this particular Java servlet is it works on the server side. Along with that, servlets are the capable of handling the complex request obtained from the web servers. And another key feature is generating the dynamic response efficiently. Okay. Here in the servlet architecture, we people are going to discuss in detail how the servlets are going to work. Basically, from the clients are using any of the browser, and from that they are going to send the HTTP request to the web servers. And here the web server sending that HTTP request to the servlets. Inside the servlet, there are servlet container will be there, and those containers are connecting to the database. And here the servlets, what is going to happen depends upon the HTTP response. It is going to send the response to the client request. So here in the web server again sending to the web browser, and finally the client is going to get the dynamically response. So this is the detailed architecture of the servlet. Next, we are going to discuss servlet lifecycle. A servlet lifecycle can be defined in entire process from its creation to the destruction in 3 to 4 steps. We are going to discuss in detail. The servlet is initialized by calling the init method. The servlet calls the second, that is service method, and the last, the servlet is terminated by calling the destroy function, that is destroy method. At the end, what is going to happen, the JVM, that is Java virtual machine, is going to collect all the garbage which is generated by these servlets. Next, these are the 5 steps where the servlet lifecycle is going through. One is loading of a servlet, creating the instance of a servlet, invoking the init method, invoking the service method, and finally the destroy method. Next, loading of a servlet. We are going to discuss in detail. First is loading of a servlet. When the web server, that is Apache Tomcat we are using, starts up, the servlet container deploy and loads all the servlets. In the second, it is going to create the instance of a servlet. Once all the servlet classes loaded, the servlet container creates the instance of each servlet class. The servlet container creates only one instance per servlet class, and all the requests to the servlets are executed on the same servlet instance. The third method is invoking the init method. Once all the servlet classes are initiated, the init method is invoked for each instantiated servlets. The fourth step is invoking the service method, where whatever the request is made from the client, here the response will be given. We are going to discuss that. Invoking the service method. Each time the web server receives the request for a servlet, it spans the new thread and that calls the service method. For each and every particular request, there is a new thread is going to be created. If the servlet is generic servlet, then the request is served by the service method itself. If it is a HTTP type of service, then the receives the request, that it dispatches the correct handler methods based upon the type of the request which is made by the client. And next, invoking the destroy method. When a servlet container shuts down, this is usually going to happen when we are going to stop the web server. Okay, when the servlet container shuts down, it unholds all the servlets and call the destroy method for each initialized servlet. Here is the architecture. We are going to discuss detail about in the architecture diagram of the servlet. Here you can see that there is a web server. Web server is connected to the servlet container, and here the servlet services we are going to provide. Here it is going to be provided. In the Java virtual machine, what is going to happen? web servlet container, it is the request from the HTTP request from the client will be taken, and the servlet containers is going to create the services to the each of the request. Basically what is going to happen, for each request there will be a new thread will be created, thread A, thread B, thread C. We know that thread is a lightweight process. When you people are going to call any request, it is going to be created one of the thread. So thread is a lightweight process. So here thread A, thread B, thread C, it is going to invoke the service method. Usually what is going to happen, a servlet is a Java is a Java programming class. We know that in that what is going to happen, whenever the HTTP request is coming to the server are delegated to the servlet container, the servlet container loads the servlet before invoking the service method. Then the servlet container hands the multiple requests by spanning the multiple threads, each thread executing the service method of the single instance of the servlet. So in this manner you people have understood the working of a architecture. Next, here in detail we are going to study about the servlet life cycle. Initially what is going to happen in the servlet container, we are going to invoke the init method. Next, it is going to call the service method. In the service method what is going to happen, the HTTP response is going to request to the do get method, do post method, do head method, do option method, do trace method, or a do delete method. So these are the services which is provided by the HTTP, the hypertext transfer protocol. And finally the request depends upon the request, the response will be generated by the service method itself. And at the end Java virtual machine is going to be called, and it is going to be called the destroy function, and it is going to deallocate all the objects from the memory. So this is the servlet life cycle. Working of servlet. When the web server, that is Apache Tomcat, starts up, the servlet container deploy and loads all the servlet. Once the servlet is loaded, the servlet container creates the instance of the servlet class for each initiated servlet. That is, it is going to call the init method, which is going to be invoked. Third point, the client, that is basically we people and we are using the browsers. The clients sends the HTTP request to the web server on the certain ports. Each time the web server receives the request, the servlet container creates HTTP request and the HTTP response object. Two objects are going to be created. One is HTTP servlet and another is a HTTP servlet response. The HTTP servlet request and objects provide the access to the request information, and the HTTP servlet response object allows us to format and change the HTTP response before sending it to the client. When the servlet container shuts down, it unloads all the servlet and calls the destroy method for each initialized servlet. In detail, we are going to discuss about the init method. The init method is designed to be called only once. It is called when the servlet is first created and not the called again for each user request. So it is used for the one-time initialization just with the init method for the applets. The servlet is normally created when the user first invokes a URL responding to the servlet. The init method, this is the syntax for the init method, public void init, and here for handling the exceptions we are going to throw the servlet exception, and inside these two brackets we are going to write down the code or initializing the code. This is the syntax for the init method. Next we are going to discuss regarding about the service method. The service method, it is the main method to perform the actual task. All the operations will be done in the service method here itself. The servlet container, that is the web server, calls the service method to handle the request coming from the client, though nothing but the browser, and write the formatted response back to the client. Depends upon the request, the service method is going to provide the response. Each time if the server receives the request for the servlet, the server issues a new thread and calls the service. The types of service method here the HTTP is going to provide is get method, post method, put method, delete method, and it is going to call the do get method, do post method, do put method, do delete method, etc. methods depends upon the which is going to be appropriate. The signature of the service, that is nothing but the syntax here. Public void service, inside service request type request, service response type response, and for handling the exceptions we are going to write throws servlet exceptions, input out exception, and inside these two functions we are going to initialize the code, or we are going to write the code. The service method is called by the container, and the service method invokes the do get, do post, do put, do delete, etc. methods depends which are appropriate. So you have to nothing to do with the service method, but you override other do get or do post method depending on which type of request the client is wanted. That time the response will be done here. And do get and do post are most frequently used methods in each service request. This is the syntax for the do get method. Public void do get, HTTP servlet request type request. Here we are sending the response which is of type HTTP servlet response, and for handling the exceptions we are having the throwing the exceptions, and inside that we are writing the servlet code or initializing the servlet code. And this is the signature for the do post method. Same thing, only the instead of do get we are writing the do post method here, HTTP servlet request type request, and the response will be of HTTP servlet response. Okay, and inside that servlet code will be there. This is the destroy method, the final and the last method. The destroy method is going to call only once at the end of the life cycle of the servlet. This method gives you the servlet chance to close the database connection, halt the background threads, write the cookies list or hit the count of the number of disk it is used, and perform other such a cleanup activities. After the destroy method is called, the servlet object is marked for the garbage collection, and the destroy method is definition looks like this: public void destroyed, and it will be written in the finalized code. So this is all about the destroy method. So these are the references which we have used for creating these sessions. The book is Java Servlet and JSP cookbook. These are the ebook and these are the e-resources. And in coming sessions we are going to discuss more about the servlet examples. Thank you.